There he is. Eloy?
Oh, there he is. I was just telling the snare drum story.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
He hasn't paid me back yet. Maybe one day.
I'm asking for Paulo so he can pay that for you.
Uncle Paulo paid us back.
I'm so cheap.
See?
Shit.
Perfect timing.
Yeah. Drummers, man.
Sure.
Perfect timing. Hey, what's up? I'm Dave McClain. I play with Sacred Reich. And let's talk about some drum stuff.
Let's talk about stuff.
Stuff.
First of all, get it out of the way. Your Wikipedia says you're born in Frankfurt, but a friend of mine said that he watched a show of Machine Head in Wiesbaden.
Yeah.
And Rob was saying, yeah, this is Dave's birthday and he was born here.
Yeah.
So what is it, Wiesbaden or
All
Frankfurt?
right, so we'll clear it up because, Wikipedia is always correct, right? I was born in Frankfurt, October 22nd, 1965. Wiesbaden was where the Air Force base was that we were stationed on. So apparently the hospital facilities weren't quite up to par there. So I was actually born in Frankfurt, in a hospital there. And then we were in Wiesbaden for about 2 years after that.
Yeah, I myself was born in Frankfurt, so...
Were you?
Yeah, of course, I'm a Frankfurt guy.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, of course, you don't know me.
We were like neighbors.
When you watch a show by another band, whatever the genre might be, what catches your attention when you look at and listen to the drummer? And are there any moments in your life when your jaw just dropped?
Yes, when I go to a show and I'm watching other drummers, I'm watching for you can kind of tell right off the bat if somebody's very comfortable playing. They have that kind of feel, and they're not no struggling going on. So, you always get those drummers when you go see a band and you're just, example, watching Eloy every night. It's, when you go see like metal bands, like, oh, he's a great metal drummer, he's a great this and that, but he's like right up there with watching like Dave Weckl, Vinnie Colaiuta, he's like those kind of dudes. So I would say for jaw-dropping things, like this tour is great. It's so good.
His physical playing is so incredible, and then still maintaining the power until the very last note.
Last note.
And be able to incorporate all those very dancey beats. You know what I mean? Like this Latin stuff he can pull off.
And it's great, it's great watching him all the time. And so you kind of know what he's doing, right? Like kind of night by night what he's going to do. And then you see him go above that sometimes and he'll do something different. And there's been times when I was like, what were you doing? What was that? Because it was insane. Like, you're already playing the craziest stuff I've ever seen, and then you just took it up a level. And one time he told me that he was just trying to make the band members laugh, or try to throw them off from what they were doing, and so it's pretty killer, man. But then you can go see a band. You can go watch AC/DC and watch Phil Rudd play, and it's that same kind of like, it's just a feel. When you go see a band and you see the drummer and they have that certain feel, the life in their playing. It could be basic, it could be, the craziest Vinnie Colaiuta stuff ever, but it all just has to have that human thing, that feel to it.
Back in the day.
Back in the day.
Back in the day.
Back in the day.
Once upon a time, when The More Things Change came out, I noticed immediately your drumming was not only different from the style that the previous drummer Chris Kontos had, but it was in general a little less metal. like the metal,
Right.
kind of thing, like the typical thrashy thing, but it was way more busy, more interesting stuff. How did you approach your drumming in that point of your career?
That's interesting. Joining a band like Machine Head, that the first Burn My Eyes record, it kind of exploded on the scene. So when I came in, there was a lot of pressure within the band to keep that kind of thing going. And, the drumming on Burn My Eyes is great. Like Chris, the drumming is just like, it's like the one record that he's played on really that people know. And the drumming's so good that people, like, it lives inside people and it's great, like powerhouse drumming. So coming into Machine Head, we worked a lot on the drums, like we did a lot of pre-production for that record, just following up not only the music, just trying to make Burn My Eyes to the next one kind of a seamless transition. We worked just as hard, like trying to get the drum stuff good and working on drum parts. And when I'm writing drum parts for things, I kind of just tend to, I think Vinnie Paul used to do it so good where he would play what the song kind of gave you. And I think that's really important as a drummer when you're writing stuff, to just play what the song is kind of giving you, and you don't have to, a lot of times it's very rhythmic, like the stuff we were doing on The More Things Change was very rhythmic, very, drum friendly stuff, and kind of a lot of room to go off and do some things. So, we just tried to keep that intensity from the first record into the second record. There are definitely two different styles going on, and so I don't really know how to explain that. It's just, I've always been more of just like, the groove has always been like a very important thing to me, rather than just playing something like just fast or, just thrash beat or whatever like that. I always try to hear different things, even if it is a thrash rhythm, try to do different things. Like Lars used to do that so good on, back like Master of Puppet stuff and Ride the Lightning, when he would, all the things that he would do, hitting things on the upbeat when you didn't expect it, and like doing thrash beats, but then putting toms in there. I always thought stuff like that was so clever. The way he heard songs, the way he heard drum parts was out of the box of like what a normal drummer would hear, and those were like the things that I would try to kind of take. And things like that are always easy to mimic, right? But to come up with those ideas on your own, that's the big thing. There's 100,000 drummers, and more than that in this world, that could just go and play the Sacred Reich show for me and play on a record or do whatever. But not only getting better as a drummer, but getting better as hearing drum parts within a song. Like that's the interesting thing that really puts like your fingerprint as a drummer on things, rather than just anybody can go like that, play thrash beats on things or whatever, but it's the other things that you do, and those are the things that I learned like from Lars, from Vinnie Paul, like from Igor, like things like that just like you think out of the box a little bit.
I would say there are two ways of doing that if you are presented with a riff. First thing is recognizing some pattern in it.
Yeah.
And using that pattern as a color, be it on your cymbals or on toms or whatever. Or you hear something that is not there, but you can add it.
Yeah.
It elevates everything, like playing another guitar riff to that or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you really have to listen. That's the most important thing. Not the one motion you are really good at in each and every song.
Yeah, you do.
Listen and figure out what is best.
Yeah, and also doing things like that, things that helped me were, I've always played guitar. I suck, but I play guitar enough to write. I wrote things in Machine Head. I've written things in the past in Sacred Reich, like a couple riffs here and there. Doing that kind of helps you. It kind of helps you see where you write a riff, and then you kind of have to figure out what you want to put on it as a drum part. So it definitely like helps your creativity in that respect. Where because when you write something on the guitar, you have to like look at it. You're looking at it as a guitar player, then you go look at it as a drummer, and you want to play something, you got to figure out the things. So it kind of helps doing that. Definitely.
you're still looking back, because that's how metal works, right? It's a lot of looking back.
I'm going back in the day.
Yeah, looking back and looking at you now. So what different stages in your learning career do you have passed, and what valuable epiphanies were along the way?
I think over the years, things that I've learned along the way, and you could go back to, say, like Chris from Machine Head on the first record, like the type of drummer that, you know, they would always tell me that he was the type of drummer that wouldn't really play things the same way twice, you know, almost Keith Moonish in a way. And so over the years, you know, growing up, like one of my main influences was Neil Peart, and Neil was always the same thing, right? Like he would play these amazing drum parts and he would play them perfectly on the live records, perfectly all the time. And I think over the years, like I've tried to get more into like the Keith Moon mentality, where you're not playing things the same, or when you're writing things, you're trying all kinds of different ideas, right? So you just don't get stuck on this one thing. Like, oh, I did this amazing fill, I'm gonna do that all the time on that. So, you know, one thing that's great, like getting older as a drummer, would be if you think you just did something cool and somebody gives you an idea to do something different, or just on your own, just to better that and try something different. I think that you know, that's a hard place to get to as a drummer, because you know, there was a time when I kind of used to pride myself on getting into a studio and doing things in one take. And that was it. That's what it is. It's the best. You know, it can't get any better,
man.
Yeah, you know, you go in and it used to be cool. Like the red light would come. You know, recording light would come on, and you'd make it through the song, and it would be good. But you know, like getting older and more recording, you kind of want to just try different things and not become just married to one part. So, you know, now like, when we're in the studio, we'll do something and I'll go, let's try different fills, you know, just take a day and do different fills. You know, now I'm at the point where I can go in and, like when we were doing Awakening, we'd do like, you know, each song like 4 or 5 times. And I would try to do different fills on each thing. So at the end of when we were done with the song and we were done with like 4 or 5 versions of the song, I would tell our producer, Arthur, just go in and whatever you think is the best fill, whatever you like the best, just put that one in there, you know? So I think maturity, I guess, you know, as you get older and more experience being in the studios, that kind of thing.
When you read those magazine polls, Modern Drummer Thing, and you have your cover story and all that kind of stuff, and you read articles about you, do you think that people really understand you and your drumming? Or do you sometimes think, well, that can't be me, or can it? Or have other people's analyzing words shown you a different side of you that you never saw before?
Yes, the analyzation for sure. Especially when they put transcriptions up of drum parts. I'm like, wow, I'm playing that. That's cool. You know, it's crazy. Yeah, I guess it's, you know, hearing people's interpretation of what you're doing, or, you know, the technical talk of everything. It's pretty crazy. But I never really thought of that too much as far as like the analyzation, you know, where people are, you know, the descriptions of you and everything else, because like I just look at myself as some dork that plays drums, you know what I mean? That's like, they got lucky being at the right place at the right time, and having albums that I've been on that have inspired people, that have like been part of their lives, you know? So I don't really read too much into all the things that I would read about myself, like, you know, whatever it would be about a certain drum part or anything like that. Like, it's just, you know.
The question comes from that point that some friends of mine or people that know my stuff I do filming-wise said, yeah, I read your signature. I'm like, what? What signature? It's just the stuff I do. Yeah. I can't see anything remotely consistent in my work.
Yeah.
they can. So this is why.
Yeah, like, I mean, sometimes people say, oh, we wanted like the Dave McClain style drumming, and I don't know what that is. If that was like a certain beat, I've had people come up and say like the beat from the Machine Head song Imperium, the verse beat was something that like when they were growing up, and that was like, they would always learn that beat, that kind of thing. And I'm like, that's cool, but I stole that from Igor. So, everything's kind of borrowed and like, lifted from somebody else. And then, but the fact that, I have people coming up to me like other drummers. It just happened, we were on the ferry the other day and there was these kids on like this band, and they came up and they're like, the drummer was like, dude, I used to, try to figure out Imperium in my room. And, it was just part of my life. And it's like, that's the cool stuff to me, you know what I mean? Because I have drummer tattoos on my leg, and I know that, like Iron Maiden Killers, that's a part of my life. Like that's, it's like a fabric in me and to have people come up and tell you that kind of thing, that means a lot more than just hearing somebody say, oh, is an interview, like a modern drummer article about something. Oh, his drumming is this and that, sensationalizing things. It's more of the things when people come up and are like, you really inspired me as a kid. And I'm like, that's crazy, because I've got my idols on my leg, and I understand it. It's just like, it's just weird, it doesn't really compute in my head.
During your career, have you been in contact with musical genres that you don't really like, but you needed to incorporate them in your playing for whatever reason, but you took something positive out of it creatively?
I think like, man, that's a tough one, because there's only like a few kind of genres of music that I don't really know how to answer that without, I don't want to insult any genres of music. I've never really had to take anything that I don't like to include it into something else.
I had to record 3 power metal records, and it was an extremely, I can't say a bad experience.
Yeah.
Blah. But I took from it that I was more consistent with the beat, not changing too many things, too many notes, because I'm coming from a super busy school of drumming.
Yeah.
But if you are forced to play the same thing all over again for 8 straight minutes and you hate yourself for doing it,
yes,
I came out a little cleaner, and I figured, okay, sometimes you need to do just that, and it is way more effective than all your fancy bullshit you can pull off. This is where my question comes from.
Oh, absolutely. It was kind of going back to the other question, just about when you go see a drummer and the things that make your jaw drop with a drummer, and it's the same thing with you always want to show off your talents in a song. You always want to do, you kind of always want to like, I can do this, and I can do that, and I can do that. Some of the better things you can do are don't do that. Pull back, you know what I mean? Like, get your drummer ego, throw that away, and you don't always have to think about, oh, what's this drummer, what are the drummers going to think about what I'm doing on this part and all this stuff. And you think, because there's always time for that when you're playing live. You can make your arms flap around more and impress people, like you're doing something great. But in the song, that's another thing about playing what the song kind of needs. And sometimes it doesn't always need all those crazy, whatever lick you just learned in your drum room the week before, you know what I mean? That's one of the things that takes like some discipline for sure when you're doing things. And if somebody tells you, if say like, a band member or a producer or an engineer tells you, hey, that was great, but pull back, keep it a little bit more basic,
If it's a guitar player, just tell him to fuck off.
I usually do.
Bass player, different kind.
When we were doing The Awakening, our producer Arthur, I was playing this one thing, and I was just bashing this part on a China cymbal. He was trying something, just like, I'll play this beat on the China. And so he would come out after every take and like, oh, that was cool. Or he would have ideas, but he just goes, that beat you're doing on the China, when you were playing the China, and I was thinking, oh, he liked it. I was like, yeah. He goes, don't do that. So, sometimes it's better just to hold back and just, be a little bit more basic on things.
How long was the longest period you couldn't play the drums? And what happened with you?
Oof, that's the easy one. That was it was right out going back in the day. It was right after we recorded The More Things Change. We went off to Liverpool to mix it. The guys ended up re-recording all the guitars and bass on it. So we were there for about 6 weeks, remixed it, came back, and I got in a car wreck. This leg, I was in the car, and this leg went up into the steering column of the car, and just shattered my kneecap. So that was a beginning to. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if I pulled my pant leg up and there was no kneecap there. It was kind of in pieces, down here, and I'm in shock. I'm walking around on the road like I'm okay. It's just dislocated, and that was kind of the beginning of. I didn't know if I was gonna. You see your leg like that? Can you play drums again? They take you to the hospital. They actually sent me home because at the time I didn't have any insurance, America. And so they sent me home, and I ended up having to go to the county hospital in Oakland. They took me in, and they did a great job and wired it all back together. And so I'm at home. I got a cast on. My leg's healing. So that was about. Luckily for me, they went back and re-recorded all the guitars and remixed the album again. So I had this.
So
time
no
to heal
touring,
up.
no nothing.
No touring, no nothing. We were still doing the record and trying to make it right. And
you can't release a record and not tour immediately. You have to do it.
Yeah,
especially
back
if you're on fire like your band was.
Yeah, especially back then. So I think the good thing about trying to make The More Things Change comparable to Burn My Eyes production-wise was like, okay, that's not good enough. We got to remix. We got to remix. And so that gave me time to heal up, and that was crazy because it was a hard time in my life because I didn't know where I stood as far as like are they going to try to find another drummer? I don't know how long my rehabilitation is going to last or take. It took a couple months just to I got the cast off, and my leg was basically kind of stuck like that, and I had to every day just bend it, break all the scar tissue. So I started playing drums, and when I started playing, I was almost standing up, because I couldn't bend my legs. So I had to reconfigure like my whole, my seat was way high, and, I was just trying to play. I was trying to do it. And that was probably like a good 2 to 3 month time where I couldn't play, couldn't do anything. But luckily we had things going on to where, it was kind of dead time. So
look, I couldn't play for 1 whole year.
Oof.
And now cameras. Reconsider what you want to do with your life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So sometimes life needs to put you on the right track,
yeah.
Even if it hurts.
Yeah, definitely.
There are a few sayings like less is more, 2 and 4 pays the bills, and all that kind of stuff. So one of them is what you play is as important as what you don't play.
Yes.
Okay. That sounds at first like less is more a little bit, but it can mean that in a particular part in a song, not playing can sometimes be more effective than to continue playing, like really stop or leave out that snare once, what I absolutely love.
Yeah.
Then it's really important what you don't play.
Yes.
Because That's already a fill. No snare, fill, right? The easiest fill
Yes.
of them all. But you have to do it in the right spot, of course.
Yeah.
It doesn't always work. So how do you understand this or similar sayings? So,
That right there, the whole snare thing. I was just playing Tommy from Crowbar. We're all Kiss freaks, right? So there's a song on Kiss Alive 2, and we were trying to figure out who played drums, because Kiss always had like these rotating, Peter Criss played on most of the stuff, but they had like Anton Fig would play on some things. And so there was a song called Larger Than Life. And it's got this beat where it'd go, but then he'd go, he'd lift the snare. It wouldn't be where you think it's going to be. Things like that. I was just listening to Pink Floyd, The Wall, the whole record for the first time the other day. And when they get, the main song, we don't need, and there was a part when the lead was going on and the drums went. The beat, and I never realized that. That's genius, because that's like the things that those are the things, those are the things that like, doing things like that is the equivalent of playing like a crazy, crazy busy drum fill. And that's the creative part, that I was talking about before, like with Lars, the things that he would do, like you think out of the box. And sometimes it does take, a guitar player to figure that out, to go like, oh, don't do that there, maybe try that, or somebody to tell you, and then you get those things in your head, you know what I mean? And those are all like cliches, like, but it's true, like I always tell people that, it's not so much the space in between the beat, it's your movement, you know what I mean? Like it's your movement that you're doing that's gonna create that feel on the drum. Because there's always space in between something, but that space can be it could be robotic, or it can move, and it'll feel, you know what I mean? So that, when I hear like the space in between a note is more important, I always think of the body movement and, the wrist moving into it, to where it's gonna like hit the drum right, you hope. Sometimes I hit the microphone and I look at our sound, I kind of poke my head up and I see if the sound guy's looking, and I'll be like, did you hear that he goes, oh, I heard it. Going around for a drum fill. You'll see tonight. My first tom is an 8-inch tom.
Oh, okay.
And that thing, man, it's like sometimes I'm like, I'm not even going to go start on you because I know I'm just going to crack,
Hit or miss by design.
It's like, it's so funny. So sometimes I'm like, first note is like a microphone hit, So.
Yeah, when the microphone is bigger than the drum.
Yes, it sticks over. Like, can't we put that thing over here, just off the drum? But drummer problem.
Yeah. When you play your instrument and you get in the free mental zone, like almost the meditative kind of thing, sometimes you can do that. What happens to your thoughts? Because sometimes I get creative in not drum-related areas, like running, and then you have great drum ideas.
Yes.
Not on the set. On the set, everything else happens sometimes.
Yeah.
So what is your experience with that?
That same thing, like when I run, I go running all the time, and that there's that thing, the runner's high, that you always read about in runner magazines, but it's a true thing. And when you have that, things start pouring into your head, like ideas, especially when you're writing songs, like drum parts, and you're going through that, and I'm running, and I got that, whatever that is, whatever juices are flowing when you're running, creative things, and I'll hear something, and I'm like, oh, I gotta try that. We're playing live. Sometimes we'll get off, and our guitar player Joey will go, "Dude, what did you do when so and so song on the chorus or whatever?" And I'm like, I have no idea. I know I did something different, but I don't know what it was. I'm like, what did I do? Because and I'll go back and our sound guy always records the shows, so I'll listen back on things. Sometimes when you're just going and you're in that zone and you're just kind of feeling, I don't know what it is. You're just kind of like in a trance almost, and you just try things in it. Sometimes it works, and sometimes I hit myself in the face with my drumstick. I really do. Glasses fly off, That's the one thing about playing in glasses. They fly off when you hit them.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah.
Like, they fly off. And I will have those moments where I'm just like, this is great. And then, bam, right in the face with a stick. It takes you out. Wakes you up real quick.
Yeah, we all been there.
Yes. I'm there a lot. At least once a night. Hopefully not on the songs you're filming.
You've met a couple of bands and musicians along the way since you've started drumming.
A few.
A few, right?
A few.
A few, okay. Would you say that there are certain patterns in the way guitarists, bass players, singers and drummers are like? And does your decision what instrument you feel most comfortable with reflect certain aspects of your personality? Certain people are bass players, certain people are drummers. Drummers are always calm and nice because they're in the back anyways.
It's interesting because I think definitely over the years, it could just be that I'm a drummer and I usually just talk to the other drummers, but there's usually like this good camaraderie, like this mutual respect among drummers, no matter, like Eloy. He doesn't even have to give me the time of day because he's much better than me. But, we all have me, him, and Tommy. We'll get together and we'll talk about drum sets and everything else. And I think it's just like a cool mutual respect about what we do. And we try not to talk to bass players, but we will sometimes. But I think there's definitely a humbleness in being the drummer. I think because you're back there, you're kind of back behind the thing. Some drummers are more in the forefront or whatever, and the show. But I think there's definitely a mutual respect thing that goes along with. And you kind of gravitate towards that on the tour, like you want to hang out with the drummer, like you all have this thing in common already. So there's like, the ice is broken rather, because, with anybody else, like guitar players or whatever, like, what are you really going to talk about? Because they just want to talk to the other guitar player about what the best pickup is on a guitar. And we don't care about that stuff. We just want to hang out, talk drums, Drums are way cooler.
We have more stuff to talk about, right?
Way more stuff.
And it's so interesting that even if you buy the same drum kit, like the same shells, it's never going to be the same.
We were just talking, me, Tommy, and Eloy were just talking the other day about older drums and old things that we collect, and I was showing them some old Ludwigs that I have, because I always try to get old Ludwig snares around. I would try to get them on my birth year, which is 65. Eloy was like, there's one of my favorite drums is like the Ludwig Acrolite. And I can't find any because they're like, if you find one in Brazil, they're like $1,000. So I looked on this music store I live in Wisconsin now. So I looked at this music store that does like used things, and there was an Acrolite. I bought it, and I'm like, hey, I'll go pick it up when I get home. And when you guys come through again in town, I'll bring you your snare drum. He was like, no, it's like you turn into a little kid again. He was like, no way, dude. Like, oh my God, my favorite snare.
Finally, a band question. 2 records with Sacred Reich, then 8 Machine Head records, right? And now returning to your old shoes. So how do you feel different about yourself? And what is the feedback from your bandmates? Maybe you feel like nothing much has changed, but maybe they're like, dude, you are a completely different drummer now. So what's the situation? What did you feel coming back?
Yeah, because there was that 23-year gap in between. I think the main thing was the experiences that I've had. They kind of all went back into like normal life for a little bit, like, you know, jobs and doing this and that. So I think like coming back into it, it was more, you know, now that they got back into wanting to do Sacred Reich full time, you know, it was more of the experiences that I've had over the years and all the, you know, the level of things that we did, you know, in Machine Head. Yeah. Is that what you were talking about?
I mean, more like, dude, you play way louder. You play way more controlled.
Yeah.
You are super sloppy. What happened?
Oh.
Something like that. Like,
yeah.
What only your bandmates really realized.
You know, I think coming back into everything, it wasn't really, definitely not sloppier. That's for sure.
It was just a joke.
Playing with Sacred Reich for me, you know, when I joined them, like I was joining my favorite band, you know, and Sacred Reich's always been kind of like my first love as far as like what I love playing. So yeah, it's crazy. It was just crazy getting back with them after 20-something years. We did one practice and it was like, we sound great. You know what I mean? Like there was no like gap in time or anything like that, and everything was killer.
Back in the day, your toms were super flat. Not like the metal thing, the tilting metal thing where you can lean in and play, but it was way more flat, and the kick drums were
spread out.
Spread out, right? Exactly. So, but no, you changed that.
Yeah.
And first of all, why was that in the first place? Was it a sound decision? Was it a motion decision? Or I don't know.
Yeah. So
and why changing it?
Well, the main reason I did my kit like that was, like everybody calls it the lowrider kit, because the kicks were so spread out, the toms were, you know, like so low. Everything was so low. It just looked cool. I started spreading things out and moving things down, and I would look at it from the audience perspective. To me, I think it's, you know, when drummers look at other drum kits, it's almost like going to a car show. You know what I mean? Like you're looking at all the things and you're like, wow, that's so cool. So for me, doing that, it was kind of like setting my kit apart from all the other double bass kits that I would see on tour. And it started taking on this kind of really cool character about the kit. So I just kept getting things lower and lower, like right now, if I went and did my kicks like that and I was playing like that, it would be so weird to me. But it was gradual over time that I did that, and you know, more and more space and getting lower, and every day I was trying to make it just look cooler, and I was adapting to playing like that. So it wasn't like a big change right off the bat, you know. I had that for a few albums, and then I started, you know, on off times where I'd just go play drums on my own. Like one of the things I would do would play like, you know, to songs that I played to when I was a kid. So I put on a Rush album, having 3 toms and playing the Rush, like, doesn't work out. So I started adding more toms, and then we would start writing, and I was like, man, I want to start doing a lot of these things, like doing more, you know, bigger tom fills and higher drums and all that stuff. So you can only pretty much fit 2 toms in between the kicks that low, you know what I mean? So that's why it changed back to like a more standard setup, was just because I started adding more things, you know. And at one time in Machine Head, I had 2 kicks, 3 racks here, 2 8s here, a floor tom here, floor tom over there, and it was just like this giant kit. So there's no way you can really, like, you can't do the lowrider like that, or you're just gonna have toms here, here, over here. You know, we toured with Heaven and Hell, Black Sabbath, and Vinny Appice. He had those toms that were on like a bungee cable. So he would hit them and he would pull the rack. It was on like a rack, and he would pull them, and they would swing almost all the way back to where you think it's gonna fall down. Watching that as a drummer, like, gives you anxiety because you just want to go catch the toms before they fall. But it was so cool. It was like one of those things where you do that kind of thing for the audience, you know, something cool to look at. And now they just got a regular old boring drum kit to look at. But a beautiful Yamaha drum kit. Hey, it's Dave McClain again. I hope you loved the drum interview. Or wake up, it's over now. Hopefully I wasn't too boring, but hope I gave you some insight into what I go through as a drummer, what I've been through back in the day as a drummer. It seemed to be the theme for today. So, hope you enjoyed it.